Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a special online event today called Activating Your Integral Heart, 4 Keys to Unlock the Hidden Powers of Your Heart Intelligence. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the president and CEO of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be here with you today to be learning and exploring and deepening with a remarkable teacher at the leading edge of consciousness. His name is Terry Patten, and he has literally spent decades researching the best methodologies for integral transformation and synthesizing those in a work that really focuses on the heart and activating the heart as a portal to new possibilities for awakening, for transformation, and ultimately service in the world. And he's written his magnum opus recently called A New Republic of the Heart. And it really bridges the inner work of transformation with the outer work of shifting our society in remarkable ways. And it's having a big impact in a lot of circles. Terry has worked with the Institute of Heart Math, which is and led the team that developed their first heart rate variability device. He's been involved with creating integral life practice, originating from integral theory. He's written many books and has really synthesized 40 years of wisdom as a serious student and teacher of authentic spirituality into a remarkable perspective and how we can awaken our hearts and live in a very integral, whole way. So, Terry, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's great to be here with you. I so appreciate the transformational work that you're spearheading with this remarkable community you lead, the Shift Network. It's wonderful to be a part of all that.
Great. And big kudos on your recent book. We're super excited about this book. So I also want to say right up front, we're going to have this hour with Terry, but it's not the end of the journey. If you want to go deeper, we have an amazing new program with him called Living the Integral Heart. Access your heart's full intelligence to find radical happiness, deepen your relationships, and live a life of purpose and passion. So we'll hear a bit more about that towards the end of the hour today. So Terry, I always like to start with a little bit more of, the backstory. So you sometimes talk about you're reclaiming the revolutionaries of love, and you're kind of reclaiming certain qualities of the heart and integrating from many different traditions. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your own journey of the heart and what brought you to championing and advancing this work today.
Well, when I was 6 years old, my parents moved from the south side of Chicago to the York Center Community Co-op, which was an intentional community founded in the 40s by members of the Church of the Brethren, which is one of the peace churches, along with the Quakers and the Mennonites. And so I was raised with all these kind of co-op aunts and uncles who were sort of mentoring me and being a social activist and a revolutionary. This was in the years of the civil rights movement and the peace movement. So that was kind of how I cut my teeth. But then a little later, I began to realize that if we're going to have a revolution that's going to genuinely transform the world, that it had to have a really powerful and deep spiritual foundation. So I found my way to my root guru, Adi Da, and lived in an ashram for 15 years from the age of 22 to 37. And those years were really profoundly important. And leaving the ashram was a profound transition for me as well. And in the years that followed, I created a company. I wrote a book and created a company that defined the field of consciousness technologies. And in the process of doing that, I ended up working very closely with the Institute of Heart Math, and they had a wonderful influence on me. And so those influences have been part of what I've been synthesizing as I then found my way to working with Ken Wilber and the Integral Institute, which has been the way that I've become known as a public teacher in the last 15 years or so. And in a sense, all of these aspects have really had a heart at the center of them, the heart of care for others and the original social activism. Adi Da's path was called the Way of the Heart. The work that I did with Heart Math had to do with recognizing the heart as a center of intelligence in the human system. And my own work since then in teaching an integral approach to practice has always centered on what I call integral heart intelligence. So it's really at the center of everything I've always done.
So what I hear when you say integral heart intelligence, I get that there's a way in which the heart has a unique synthesizing function for all the different other levels of intelligence with us. And I'd love for you to share a little bit. Integral heart might be a new term for a lot of people. So what do you mean by integral heart, and what are some of these different layers of the heart that can open up through practice?
we tend to think in either or terms, like, oh, the heart is important. Let's move from the head to the heart. But our mental intelligence is utterly critical. We need our very best intelligence, in fact. Right now, the whole human species is facing challenges for which we don't even have adequate answers. So we need the intelligence, though, of the whole being. And there are different kinds of capacities that are associated with the head, the heart. And there's another brain in the gut. There's neuroenterology and neurocardiology that study these brains in the gut and the heart as well. But the brain in the heart is, in a sense, the wisest one. It's the brain that we're used to thinking of, our mentalized intelligence, is capable of processing the most complex information. It can abstract and crunch big data in a way that no other center can do. And it is very connected to cause, effect, and comparison, and a variety of very important functions. The heart, as a center of intelligence, actually has subtler and you might say more intuitive capacities that are more associated with wisdom. What we've found in the research is that it's actually easier to fool the brain in the head than it is to fool the brain in the heart. And the brain in the gut is wise in other ways. It can see where power lies and what the opportunities are in a very street savvy kind of a way. And it's all connected to will and to power. And those are important elements too. The brain and the heart is sensitive to those too. So it's capable of being the place where we integrate the total intelligence of the human system. And that's why I lay such emphasis on the integral heart, because it's this integration of all our intelligence that's clearly necessary in this really chaotic and, crazy time. If we're to, in the midst of an insane world, if we're to go sane, we need all our best intelligence, and we can integrate that really at the center of our being.
Mm. A lot of spiritual greats in history have been depicted with this, sacred heart or radically open heart as sort of at the epicenter. So I'd love for you to share also just how your understanding of how the heart acts as a portal to kind of our divine self or our soul or our higher, even beyond just our kind of local intelligence, if you will, and share a little bit more about that.
Yeah. It's often said that we hear the voice of the soul with the ear of the heart. And capacity to listen to the heart and from the heart is, it's a developed capacity. There's actually a kind of reorientation of attention. And it requires all kinds of subtle forms of wisdom, a kind of self-compassion that allows us to be with our experience of threat and fear and anxiety, also our experience of pain and grief and sometimes resentment and anger. All of that have to be able to be accepted and integrated. In other words, profound self-compassion is a necessary component. But then we need to discover deeper than that a source of power of a whole different kind. Ultimately, love is way more powerful than anger. It's way more powerful than fear. And yet, to find our way to that kind of love, not love as a sentimental good feeling, not just a sweet, kind of kindly-hearted attitude, but love as an expression of our heart intelligence that in some sense is no nonsense. A 100-pound woman can lift a car off her child. There's power in love of an extraordinary capacity. And it is at the heart that we can kind of transduce this transcendental capacity. And it's getting oriented in a natural way that allows us to tune into that heart intelligence, to let that heart intelligence, in a sense, come through and carry us and guide us and orient us to our unfolding. another important thing about the heart, in a sense, we are infinite beings. You know, we extend in subtlety. Our subtle bodies are extending. We have, in some sense, our deepest identity is non-separate from other humans and even other creatures. My very self is the whole living earth in a real way. But to be related to that bigness, we have to find our way to the center of that sphere. And the very center of it all is at the heart. And it's our capacity to notice, tune in, trust, deepen, and more fully expand from the total okayness, the total trust of being, the radical, deep knowingness and peace that are really at the center of us always and effortlessly when we learn to do it truly.
Great. Well, you share that in such a beautiful and poetic way. And Terry, I know there's a way in which you have this great intellectual intelligence, but it's suffused with the heart intelligence that you're talking about. It makes for a kind of poetic beauty in how you share. I just want to presence that. And the next thing I would love to hear more about from your perspective is this notion that I've talked with folks at HeartMath more and about the sense of the heart literally creating a field that you're emanating, we're affecting people much more deeply through this heart intelligence than just through our mental intelligence, that we're literally, and that has a huge impact on all our relationships. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit more about why this is this work of cultivating and activating the integral heart's really central to having great relationships as well.
Absolutely. Well, you know, one of the things that's essential to all of biology and consciousness are rhythms. And the rhythms of the heart reflect our states altogether. So there are more coherent and less coherent rhythms. And a lot of the research that was being done at the Institute of HeartMath when I was working with them closely in the 90s had to do with, for instance, measuring the brainwaves of a person perhaps 9 feet away from another person and discovering the heart rhythms of this person 9 feet distant in the brainwaves of the other person. That is the electromagnetic wave. Well, imagine how powerfully affected all the other cells in your own body are by your heart rhythms. And your heart rhythms reflect the state of your being. Your heart rhythms can communicate not just emotional states, but even kind of psychic and intuitive states of, you know, that are spiritual in character. And so there are ways in which our growing in our capacity to live as love has a kind of physics or math to it. That's the origin of even why HeartMath calls itself HeartMath. And therefore the coming to trust, coming to find a kind of basic, deep security in this center of the being is foundational, because the heart, you know, just keeps beating, pa-pum, 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 pa-pum. And that regularity communicates a disposition. And one of the profound esoteric teachings is that there are many dimensions to our heart intelligence. There is the physical heart on the left. There is the psychic heart in the center and the lower and higher parts of the psychic heart. And there is the causal heart at the sinoatrial node on the right side that is really associated with radical consciousness. So there's really worlds within this heart system and this source of intelligence in the human system that's located at the heart. And one of the first things that it conveys on the physical side is just a kind of okayness. When you're anxious and upset and there's something bothering you and you drop in and really ask your heart's wisdom about it, very often the heart is going to more or less say, relax, things are okay. The heart trusts life and trusts what is. The heart doesn't get into the kinds of anxious quarrels with what is that are so common with our dissociated mentality. The mind is not wrong. The mind just needs to be integrated with all our other forms of intelligence. And then its enormous powers really become healthy. So instead of moving from the head to the heart, what we can learn to do is to move from the dissociated, aberrated head to the integrated whole body intelligence centered at the heart. And that's what I will be teaching in this course.
Let's extend even further now. And so we're going from the deeply personal to the interpersonal, now really the societal, which is a lot about your focus in your latest book, The New Republic of the Heart. So how does it rewire our understanding of how to engage as a positive agent of evolution in our culture to really come from the heart in this deeper, integral way?
Well, quite naturally, we do come from the heart. The only reason we have to teach this heart intelligence is that we are all partaking in a society and culture that have become aberrated, that are out of touch with the real roots of our total health as beings. So the paradox is that, in a sense, we're unlearning the dissociations from our essential heart nature. And then they can be cultivated in a deeper way, just as it's been really developed most finely in the traditions of the highest spiritual traditions, the yogas of Hinduism and Buddhism and shamanism, where people actually cultivate the profundity of the concentration of the energies of the being in the central channel, in which then the opening of all the chakras allows that energy to open, and the brightness above the head is illuminated, but then it circles back to its very center, and the circuit is completed where it originates. The heartbeat originates not in the brain, but in the heart itself, in this sinoatrial node on the right side. And it resolves back to that place. This is where radical consciousness has its home in the human system. And this is very esoteric. We don't actually need to get into all that to align to the implications of it in very ordinary ways that totally shift our experience. We actually are most interested just in relaxing all the things that prevent us from being the amazingly loving, grateful, generous, courageous beings that we truly are when we're healthy. The heart already knows how to love, and it is in love with life. It sees with eyes of love, with golden eyes that notice everything that is beautiful and true and good around us. When we open these different compensatory, dissociating patterns, and then our true nature can flow through, that's when our highest powers come back. And they're native to us, and it's unsticking that logjam and allowing the richness of the love that we are to flow through us and to be actually experienced in every cell of the body. In some sense, all our cells of our body are flowing in the tidal currents of this profoundly powerful heart signal that's at the center of our being. And when that's liberated to be really healthy, we're flowing in this larger heart. In some sense, it's not about my heart or your heart. It's the heart of being, which is what is fundamentally living all of us, and which right now, in this time of crisis, is challenged to reclaim its healthy centrality and dominion over the human realm. And that can happen through each of us in our lives. And when we do that and live that, we become part of this revolution of love that is clearly a survival necessity for us altogether.
Well, Terry, I think you're so articulate in talking about these deeper dimensions. Let's talk a little bit more about practice. And so what does it actually look like to have an integral heart practice on a daily basis? How do you make this a center of your spiritual evolution, of your service, of your relational life? How do you really keep deepening on this path of the integral heart?
Well, I think the universal principles of practice are at the very center of things, which is that we come to recognize that we are always practicing something. I could be practicing anxiety. I could be practicing irritation. I could be practicing a drifting, daydreaming kind of quality of my attention. I can be practicing resentment, or I can be interrupting those unconscious patterns with chosen orientations. And neurons that fire together wire together. So when I'm stirring myself out of those reactive patterns into a more healthy, generative, generous way of being, I'm practicing coming alive, coming awake. And that is what I wrote about with Ken Wilber and my other friends at Integral Institute in the book Integral Life Practice. It's a recognition that every aspect of life is practice, that in a sense, life, all of life is a school. And it's giving us lessons, and we get them again and again and again in new forms until we learn them, and then we graduate to new lessons. And then when we orient with an orientation of a growth mindset, recognizing that of course we didn't do it perfectly. That's fine, and we treat our, the feedback in a way that retains a compassion, but is always interested to close the gap and to show up in the next moment in a way that is more fully awake or present or generative or capable of being of aligning to our values, of expressing what's best in us. And so in some sense, it's an open-ended matter. This is true whether we're attempting to pull ourselves out of the muck of a life that really doesn't work and is full of conflict and depression and addiction, or whether we're super high functioning and we're talking about growing from a successful life to a life that's heroic or saintly. All across the continuum of possibilities, we are really doing the same thing. We're allowing that which is whole and healthy, the totality, and that's all, which by the way, is the very nature of this very moment, of this breath, of this heartbeat, of this meeting of you and me, Stephen, of this meeting of any one of us with any moment. The very nature of that is the mystery of existence itself. The mystery of existence, which is infinitely deep. This is what is called the living God. This moment, as much as we may open to its sacred character, is more by far than what we can see. That it is infinitely deep, and therefore the school of life is inviting us to open, with beginner's mind, with that sense of innocent eyes of a child possibility, knowing that whatever we know, that there's more that we don't know, and to become more interested in that. Coming alive in relation to the moment is the essence of practice. And doing that from the intelligent heart at the very center of our system in a way that makes our whole psychophysical being more and more coherent, and which allows us to be with all the imperfections and stresses in life, of which there are many, all the losses, all the heartbreak, and life is difficult. It allows us to include all of that with kind of respect, compassion, honoring the two-sidedness of our experience, but still always growing and opening into a richer, more joyous relationship to this miraculous process of living and dying that really is the greatest gift we could possibly be given. And the heart knows that. The heart relaxes into and trusts that and simply appreciates that, not in an overamped way, but in a relaxed and tacit and healthy way. And this is so profound that it operates on every level. It can simply help us recover from an illness or recover from a period of depression, or it can help us become activated as the leaders and heroes that we see our world so sorely needs right now.
That was just an incredibly beautiful explanation of how becoming more intimate with every moment opens up the worlds upon worlds of the depth that's available, and to not create an artificial distinction between practice and the rest of our life, that our life as a whole is we're always practicing something. I thought that was so beautifully shared, Terry. So are there also practices from different wisdom traditions that you find are helpful as deepeners, that are sort of more of an inward solo practice in addition to the using every moment as an opportunity to open up the universe, if you will?
Absolutely. I meditate regularly. I think it's very important. And frankly, it's the bringing together of the ancient and the modern practices that is the hallmark of an integral approach to practice. So psychotherapy is as important a part of people's practice as meditation. And awakening from subject-object consciousness into the non-separate nature of our being is as important as awakening as the very soul. And recognizing, in one tradition, we just try to transcend all individuality. In another tradition, we notice our soul as the most divine dimension of ourselves, and we enjoy the soul's journey from, you might say it's hero's journey through the journey of this life and perhaps multiple lives. So these different traditions each carry rich bodies of practices. And I bring them in often implicitly, because one of the things that I think is important is that as we recognize all of life as practice, we do practices. And it is good to do practices. But the mind that focuses on the practices and tries to do the practice often loses track of the fact that all the moments of life are practice. And that's the most fundamental root orientation. But one of the things that we do, and in fact, it might be nice really right now if you'd be willing to join me in it, we can tune in the very simple and most obvious way to the intelligence of our heart, and this center of intelligence in our being. And just breathe.
Certainly.
Yeah, breathe to our hearts and from our hearts. So if you'd be willing to close your eyes and, allow your spine to lengthen and your belly to relax, and allow the energy that might be tending to dart toward the future or the past, that might be affected by the pressures or stresses of life, to relax and restore their natural, healthy flow. And as you're breathing to and from your heart, notice that it might be that we tend to think our attention is behind our eyes. But the great yogis tell us that what we are, where we're sitting when we're sitting up there in the head, it's like the shiny moon surface. We're actually reflecting the sun that's at the center of our chest. So let yourself not be so visually focused, but feelingly, somatically focused. Notice this blazing sun of awareness at the center of your chest. Of the radical witness of all experience, which is also the source of coherence in the whole human system. Noticing that every cell in the body is bathing in this coherence when we allow it to become more and more powerful. Inhaling and being fed, exhaling and surrendering. All of it centered at the heart, expressing the simple intelligence of the heart. And one wonderful thing about the heart is that it doesn't try. The heart just is. The heart knows that it is what it is. And so, as we attune to it, we relax into what already is. And we let that hold and deepen us. And it is, thank God, a source of radical, that is unconditional or unreasonable happiness. And we need a source of unreasonable happiness. Our world is stressing us as never before. And I often like to say things are far too serious for us to lose our sense of humor. Where does that humor come from? You know, I think the heart is the source of everything that resurges. And for us to be rooted in that well-being, and how wonderful that that place is, has a kind of honoring of the heart nature of everyone. The wonderful saying, never put anybody out of your heart. When we're really in the heart, there's no impulse to do that. We come together. This is where you and I have always met, Stephen. We're heart friends. And that's what we need more and more of. If we're to really shift this world, it's going to be the heart, isn't it?
Well, I love what you just shared, Terry. And it was kind of led to a really profound recognition of what you're sharing, of like the heart is what allows us to relax fully into the moment and to be fully okay with what is. And at the same time, there's this paradox that also calls us to engage in improving and healing and blessing the world. So it's like, but that it's coming from a different place rather than trying to fix it. It's like it's a generosity of spirit rather than a anxiety, if you will, about what is.
Yes. It's not seeking, it's practicing. I make this distinction, going from being a seeker to a practitioner. The incredible, beautiful, loving character of the heart is able just to reassert itself. It's like wholeness reasserting itself in this time of fragmentation. That's how you recognize the heart.
Lovely. Well, one area, let's circle back. We started to talk a little bit more about relationships, and you're referencing our connection as being heart friends. And I'd love you to share a little bit more about the relational dimension of practice. Like, how can each moment of relationship be an opportunity for the awakening and blossoming of the integral heart?
One of the things that I'm excited to be teaching in this course, Living the Integral Heart, is what we have called in the integral world we space. That is, like right now, as we're talking, there's the attention and experience and everything that's centered here with me. There's your center of experience over there. But kind of midway, if our eyes meet, you know, there's a place at the center. We're in the room halfway between our eyes, but here in virtual space, maybe sort of in the virtual mid-ground. There's a quality to the we. There's a quality of mutual affection and respect and honoring of the other, but not just the other, of the mutuality itself. And when we are humble enough to really recognize that we is smarter than me, that there is something in our collective awareness that's a source of wisdom and a source of balance of a different kind. Especially if we're heart practitioners, we can enter into a heart-based we space. So that's one of the things that I love to help bring about, and one of the things I'll be emphasizing in the course.
Beautiful. Well, let's. I want to just kind of open it up. I've been directing more of the questions in the flow. So, what other areas of activating the integral heart are you feeling that is important to bring forward in this program here today?
Well, one of them that's super important is to bring forward our hearts. Our hearts are a transducer for the very, what is called the divine. And we're living in a time in which more and more scientific materialist thinkers are appreciating the value of meditation and are recognizing the legitimacy of spiritual experiences, even if they don't themselves, believe God. And I think that we're in a moment in which what was most sacred at the heart of our religious and spiritual life can come forward in a whole new way, in which prayer can come forward for, you might say, prayer for atheists or prayer for anyone. Because when we are in this deep heart practice, we begin to recognize that there is something inherent in the being that is relational and that relates to what is most fundamental. And this mystery of existence that I was speaking of before, which is the very nature of every moment of experience, that mystery is what's beating our heart. That mystery is what's sparking our illuminated mind or even our reactive mind. The power source, the big generator behind all this is a mystery. What is, who is thinking our thoughts? Who is breathing us? Who is beating our heart? It is our beloved that is not elsewhere, that is present here. We can turn to that mystery, and speak in second person and say, thank you. You who are the one who is called the living God. You who are the very mystery of being. You who are beyond all my ideas about you, but who are here now, more wonderful, more radiant, more divine, more luminous, more radiant than I can imagine. You who are the source of all blessing. You who have been so generous to give us this life, to give us this moment in which we can notice and turn to you. Thank you so much. Please help us to open ever more fully and deeply, that you may bring your infinitely beneficial, bright, sublime qualities to bear. Bring us into resonance and coherence with your divine nature. Uplift us, use us, let us be your eyes and ears and hands and feet. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. That is the integral heart as a devotee of the real, as a lover of what is. And that's really central to the spirit in which this revelation can restore us top to bottom and make us intimate friends too.
When you share in that poetic, prayerful way, it's really, it strikes me that there's these levels of unfolding of the integral heart intelligence, that there's this kind of intimacy with each moment that you were sharing earlier, and then this devotional energy. It's like this swooning for reality as it is, the seeing the beauty and the majesty in each moment. And I'd just love for you to share a little bit more about like some of those upper octaves of what happens and unfolds as you keep deepening this practice into these levels of devotion. And what are some of your experiences?
Well, the classic experiences that I'm used to talking about most, they correspond to all kinds of things in the great literature, the Savikalpa and Nirvikalpa samadhis and so forth. And, we can talk about them technically, but what is really important about it is just the way that it causes the being to cease to orient always primarily in terms of being me, this separate one with my self-interest, and much more able to partake of the incredibly happy communion that is the very nature of being. So it draws the being into a kind of wonder and a kind of gratitude. And those simple qualities of wonder and gratitude are yoga, the very flows of energy, subtle energy through the meridians and nadis, through the reorientation of every cell in the body to the profound glory that is our divine nature, is that experience and it. Right now, I think that the highest levels of it are not so much. I mean, it's funny, Stephen. You asked me what, because of what's going on in you didn't intend to ask a trick question, but because of how I'm working with this, it functions a little that way. I think that the highest teachings actually don't dwell in the extremes of nectar and bliss. I think they end up now expressing themselves in coming back to the marketplace with helping hands and joining together in a time in which this crisis of fragmentation asks for the heart to find its home in our friendships and in our communities of practice. And so I think that's the higher consciousness that is the heart's most fundamental impulse right now.
I think that's a great and beautiful answer to that. It is to come back into incarnate reality with a different stance and to embrace it and illumine it and bless it and help it evolve to the next level. What a high exalted practice that is, and also very practical and everyday at the same time. And I really think you're illuminating that in such a beautiful way. Well, Terry, I think this is a great time for us to talk more explicitly about your upcoming program, since it's very clear in this hour together how much depth and richness and beauty can unfold as we embark on this journey of opening our heart to and opening to the moment around us in a new way, a practice that includes everything rather than just being on the mat or on a yoga, on a zafu or something. That this is about a new orientation to life. So we're very excited for this program because it does integrate so many different threads in a way that puts us into a deeper relationship with the sacred core of our heart. So it's called Living the Integral Heart. Access your heart's full intelligence to find radical happiness, deepen your relationships, and live a life of purpose and passion. So you can find the program at integralheartcourse.com. That's integralheartcourse.com. It's be a 7-week program. And Terry, I'd love for you to share in your own words, what is it that people are going to get from this journey with you?
Yeah, well, I can go through the way it'll unfold. The fundamentals are that we're going to get established in a truly integral life of practice, which we might say life as practice. And we're going to orient to that in a variety of ways, in terms of attitudes, in terms of, a lot of it has to do with becoming a better friend to yourself. And really, wonderful line, spiritual renunciation is actually only doing what you really, really want to do and nothing else. So it begins, module 1 is called Showing Up 100%, the alchemy of total vulnerability and commitment. And that's really about establishing this life as practice. The second module is called Opening to Divine Grace, the path of ecstasy, heartbreak, and wonder. And in that one, we really go deeply into what it is to be able to pray in a profound way or commune in a profound way. and in a way that's doable, whether or not you believe in God, this wonderful love relationship with the very source of the grace that creates our life experience can open up in the most intelligent terms through that. Module 3 is expanding your intelligence through the yoga of feeling, daring to embrace everything. And this has to do with feeling intelligence, recognizing that there's been an unfortunate tendency, an error really, in the history of spiritual teachings that has oriented people to the idea that consciousness is sort of abstract and pure and only spacious, and is sort of all about non-attachment and non-connection. Whereas consciousness should be thought of maybe even as a hyphenated word, feeling consciousness. Awareness is awareness of everything, and it is by no means dissociated at all. And so a reintegrated, incarnational, non-dual awareness comes into being here. And that just opens you to a fundamental equanimity and freedom, even amidst pain and threat and loss. And it helps correct a lot of cognitive errors that help us sabotage ourselves. It's a profound shift, and it's a feeling shift where we really embody it more. Module 4 is expressing the higher octave of your will, powering your intentions with joy. Because will is so important, because we think when we really need to get something done, that's when we have to just bear down and be egoic. And we can't just be doing that from love. We have to do that from what I want, and the separate one has to reassert himself. Well, there's a way that we can convert that, and we can discover the power, the will, and intention that is rooted in the heart's intelligence. And we're going to get into that in a rich way, and that's really transformative. Module 5 is surrendering to being lived by the mystery, becoming a vehicle for evolution. And this is where we kind of get into some of the higher realizations of our spiritual journey in a way that we live, so that we're viscerally connecting up to become more profound friends to ourselves, and this experience of being lived by the mystery. Such that, in a sense, the mystery experiences the wild thing it is to be Stephen Dinan, and the mystery, and it goes back to the mystery, and Stephen gets to be lived by and powered by and empowered by that. That's what that session is all about. Module 6, dancing into the miracle of mutuality and grace-filled community, the power of we, is where we get into the really working something about this awakened we space and exploring that and learning enough so that you can do it. You can do some exercises with your friends. You can notice the opportunities to open into we space, even with people who aren't necessarily ready to practice it, so that this awakening into mutuality becomes a dimension of your practice. Module 7, transforming the world through the integral heart, integrating your full being in awakened living, is where we come back to the marketplace with those helping hands. And we recognize that because we're living in a tipping point in which, frankly, in many ways, human civilization is seemingly coming off the rails, and it's very important that we be the change that this world so needs. Well, having strengthened our relationship to the very heart of being and being lived by it more fully, we can be agents of the health of this system, the wholeness that is the antidote to this fragmentation, reasserting itself and reclaiming its dominion, the heart's dominion over this human world. And so that's the general arc of this journey. And of course, there are a variety of ways we express that in exercises and readings and shared relational conversations.
Beautiful. Well, it's an amazing program that you've assembled here, and I want to share that. First of all, I feel like when people take this program with you, it really is a journey into a different kind of aliveness in each moment. Because, as you said, operating from the heart opens the portal of the moment in a whole different way and to depths of reality. So it can help break some of the feelings of numbness or consensus trance and really kind of reinvigorate a sense of aliveness in the moment. The heart is also very key for navigating with more intelligence. Terry, you mentioned earlier that it's harder to fool the heart than the brain, and so the brain actually. So the heart helps us to navigate in a more true way through life. So as you open up the heart intelligence, you are able to navigate your decisions, your relationships, ultimately your higher purpose in a new way. So there's a way also the heart is very connected with that higher sense of meaning, and it's at the core of relationship work. And so there's a multiple levels in which taking this journey with Terry can benefit you on your path, so that you're clearer, you're emanating a different kind of field around you, which attracts different circumstances. It allows a deepening of connection and heart friendship and relationship. And it also allows a realignment with your higher intelligence and intuition. So there's a lot of very practical benefits from doing this work, in addition to the unfolding and disclosing of certain dimensions of yourself that you might not have been connected with. So it's a very rich and multifaceted course, and what I'll say a few other things about it. So first, you can find more details at integralheartcourse.com. And this is a live streaming video course, so you can ask direct questions. And also there's the benefit of this, the many levels of connection that emerge as a result of being able to see and directly connect with Terry and see his gestures and feel on another level what he's communicating. And also to connect with others in the course on video as well. So the course is going to be on Thursdays at noon Pacific time. Terry's just given a great overview of the modules. And it's on the page, you also see there's a number of extra bonuses with this program as well. So you get the 7 90-minute class sessions with Terry, which includes video and includes Q&A time. There's also a Facebook learning community, which will be very rich and deep and heart-centered, and a lot of very sophisticated people are drawn to Terry's work. So you'll make some great connections. You get recordings of every class session, both audio and video, as well as PDF transcripts, word for word, since there's a great richness in each morsel that is shared. And so to have that you can access in an easy way and excerpt key ideas and concepts to help you shift things down the road are really helpful. So it's going to start on June 14th and run at Thursdays at noon Pacific. I always say that even if you can't make the live time, you can still get the full value, because we do put the recordings up quickly and the transcripts, so you can stay up with the program and also continue to participate in the virtual group as well. And there's also some extra bonuses. So there's a number of things that we've added to enhance the value of the program. There's first of all, you see on the page, a dialogue between Terry and Jean Houston, one of the great eminent pioneers in our space and one of the most brilliant minds of our day, and quite fascinating dialogue with the two of them. It's called The Evolution of Your Soul's Purpose. We also have a dialogue between Terry and Tim Kelly called Integrating Voices That Get in the Way. Tim's particularly adept at showing how many of the parts of ourselves that we often exclude or marginalize, like the inner critic or different shadow parts, are actually holding key parts of intelligence for us. So as we're talking about the heart as an integrative function for the whole body, we're reclaiming these other parts of ourselves, and that's a great bonus to show you more how to do that. It's also a dialogue between Terry and Andrew Harvey called Renewal and Resistance, the Practice of Sacred Activism. Terry, you want to share a little bit about that one, since I know that you and Andrew are great heart friends?
As often takes place with Andrew, this ended up being a very passionate and intense conversation. He's very, very passionately moved by the emergency on the planet and how we find our way forward and become the very need in the midst of this fraught time is totally the focus of that. It's just a red hot, intense, and loving transmission, I would say. A transmission of consciousness.
Yeah. Well, it also brings up how opening the heart is opening to a wider spectrum. There's the depths, but also there's the passion and the fiery quality, which is fuel for our spiritual life and our service, which you two really embody in that dialogue. And I also want to mention there's one extra bonus which is available only today until midnight Pacific time. We do this as a way to encourage you to go to the page at integralheartcourse.com, again, integralheartcourse.com, and give it a read through and tune in, and particularly tune in with your heart. Is your heart calling you into this program and into this community of practitioners, going beyond seekers to practitioners of the way of the heart, as Terry said? And so the extra bonus when you sign up today by midnight is called the Esoteric Anatomy of the Heart. This is with Terry and Thomas Hubel. One of the things I love about Terry is that he partners with a lot of remarkable teachers and really finds the synergy points between the teachings. Thomas Hubel is a remarkable, very awake teacher of advanced enlightening practices. You want to share, Terry, a little bit about what people will receive when they get that bonus when they sign up today?
Yes, that particular bonus is one in which I get a chance to talk about the esoteric anatomy of the heart, and in some traditions the 3 hearts, and in others in the Sufi tradition the 4 hearts, and we really unpack that in a rich way. And there are qualities of intelligence and actually a trap in the Sufi system. We talk about the higher and the lower heart intelligences of the psychic heart in the center of the being. And that those lower heart sympathies are part of what we want to learn to not be tricked by. That's maybe the sentimental heart. And then recognizing what the true nature of that higher heart is. And then a very profound level of the heart's function in the causal heart, which is all of that is described and evoked in a beautiful way in that bonus. So I know people will get a lot of value out of it.
I'm sure they will, and that remarkable bonus. Well, again, you can find all the details at integralheartcourse.com. It's going to be starting fairly soon on June 25th, I said. And so just a few other things. So first of all, we've kept the price really accessible. So it's just an investment of 3 payments of $109, or you can save about 10% when you pay in full right up front, $297. I'm sorry, it's actually June 14th that it starts. And I just want to call your attention also to the endorsements on the page. You know, Andrew says, Terry Patten is one of the most awake and astute teachers of our time, eloquent, passionate, and humble, a tireless explorer of the truths of divine embodiment. They're just people who have worked with Terry really recognize the authenticity of his practice, the depth of his understanding, and his real commitment to serve you and your evolution. So when you enter this program, you are in for a real initiation and a real adventure at the frontiers of your own lived experience. So Terry, we have just a minute or so left. It's been a beautiful hour with you, so much inspiring wisdom. I feel more open in my heart, and I'm sure everyone who's watching feels the same. Anything that you want to share still that's on your heart about inviting people to go further on this journey with you in your Integral Heart program?
Yeah. I think what I want to say is, particularly to people who haven't worked with me before, this course is really a wonderful way to begin to get in touch with what a truly integral, evolutionary, heart-based practice life is. And I think that there's probably nothing else that can more profoundly shift and orient your life in a healthy way. So I'm very excited to share it with you. And for those of you who've worked with me before, this is going to be a really cool opportunity for us to engage with a new dimension. I've taught this course before, but never before with a video form. And so I think that another dimension of the transmission of the essence of this disposition is going to become possible for us in the work that we're going to do. And I'm excited that this will convene a community of heart practitioner friends, a Sangha of the heart. So I hope you'll give this serious consideration, make the time, and join us and invest in this deepening of the total intelligence and joy of your being. Look forward to getting to know you.
Well, thank you, Terry, for that warm and deep introduction or today and for offering people the chance to go much deeper with you in living the integral heart. So I know that people are in for real blessing when they do so. So again, you can find all the details at integralheartcourse.com. You get the extra bonus with Terry and Thomas Hubel when you sign up today. And there's a lot of bonuses and a deep community awaiting you if you choose to say yes. So thank you, Terry. Thank you all for joining us. And let's go forth with more heart and more awakeness and help heal and bless our little worlds as well as the larger world. And for those who want to go deeper, you are warmly welcome to join Terry in Living the Integral Heart at integralheartcourse.com. Many blessings. Thanks, Terry. Have a great day.
Thank you, Stephen. Wonderful. Bye-bye.